I wake up one Wednesday morning and there's these two big ass Samoan dudes at the end of my bed, and they're like, you're being sent to this program. You got to come with us. And they had these like zip ties in their hands. And they're like, this could be the easy way or the hard way. It was intense, dude. So I got kidnapped pretty much. So we started hosting the men's retreats and the camping trips. And last weekend we slaughtered a pig. I think that if you can get a people to forget their heritage, you can do whatever you want to them. Our philosophy for educating a young man is 3 pillars. You have a classical education, which educates them culturally, historically, and intellectually. Then you have a wilderness education, where you teach them resourcefulness and how to endure discomfort. And also being outside teaches you how to appreciate beauty. And then the 3rd pillar is martial arts, teaching a boy how to defend himself and how to protect the people that he loves. The things that you learn fighting, you cannot learn anywhere else.
What is up, everybody? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit Podcast. What we do on this podcast is bringing guests from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life to share their journey and everything along the way that led them to where they're at today. Real conversations, raw emotion, and the kind of human connection that can't be faked. We're here to make an impact, and that is what we do. So if that is for you, like, subscribe, all those wonderful things. And if that is not for you, I don't know what your problem is, but it's time to jump on board today. Thank you. But without further ado, I would love to introduce today's guest, Mr. Warren Steury. Do I say it right?
Yeah, Steury, yeah.
Yeah, welcome, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
But Warren, man, it's so good to have you.
Yeah, it's an honor, man, to be here.
He's the founder of Meriwether Academy, and dives into like classical Western art, literature, stuff along that. Initiation, you do men's retreats and stuff along those lines. You're going to dive into it further. But yeah, man, you got something really cool going on.
Thanks. Yeah, it was good to have you out at the event last week too.
Yeah, so and for those of you that don't know, I did get invited to an event, and man, it was really cool. We sat there and ate a nice meal, drank some wine, talked about some literature, some philosophy. We're all dressed up. It's a really cool experience, man. I think that was, I don't know, I've told several people about it since then, and I'm just like, dude, that was badass. So I love what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like a nice cultural breath of fresh air.
It just flowed really well, man. I hung out there for a while, but I enjoyed the company.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, for people who are listening, we do these dinner symposiums.
Yeah.
And the original idea comes from the Athenian symposiums. Symposium means drinking together.
Yeah.
In ancient Greek. So they get together and they drink wine and talk philosophy and read poetry and things like that. And then, when I was reading about Thomas Jefferson, who's one of my favorite people, I read about these dinner parties that he would throw, where he would invite people to his home at Monticello, small groups, like 10 to 12 people, and he would get them all around a table, and he would use this as an opportunity to really get to know his guests.
Yeah.
And probably it was like politicians and, leaders at the time. He could kind of understand what they were working with and what they thought. He's always searching for knowledge,
Yeah.
And yeah, he would have a topic. It could be philosophy or science, politics, whatever it is, and he would ask questions. And it was this style of running a conversation where everybody isn't just chatting with the person next to them.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is speaking to everybody else at the table. And then when somebody is talking, everybody's listening to them. So
no, I really respect that, how that goes too.
And it works every time, man. I've been doing those for maybe 2 years, and I've tweaked the format like here and there as we've done them. But at first I was like, man, I wonder if this is ever going to get old, but it never gets old.
Yeah.
The conversation, it always works. The conversation, it's fun to see it go from like the formality of the plan that I have going into it into the natural life that forms from the conversation.
Yeah.
As we go. So, when you're like 2-3 hours in, had a couple glasses of wine, it's just cool to see really the room take its own life.
100%. And it takes like a specific type of person to be present there as well. If you think about, like, you can't just have a surface level mindset. You've got to be a deeper thinker.
Yeah.
And observer and reader and stuff along those lines, because it's going to spark those kind of questions, you know. And I rolled into it. I'll be honest. I was wary because I was like, man, this is just not a room I'm used to being in, or I guess from the outside looking in, kind of. And I was like, I'm going to go, it's going to be a cool experience. Warren invited me. He's coming on the show. Well, I'll make the best of it. But I found myself pretty engaged the whole time. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. It's, even if somebody isn't like always thinking about this stuff, it draws the best out of people.
Yeah, it really does.
It draws the best out of people. It gets them thinking about things they wouldn't usually think about. And another thing is, we had 20 or 18 guys at that table.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get the chance to speak in front of, and that's a small group, but a lot of people don't have like public speaking experience like that.
It's a tough thing for people.
It's tough. So it's kind of a nice like testing ground for people to refine their public speaking skills in a private setting.
Yeah.
It's a cool opportunity for people to do that at those dinners as well.
Yeah. It helps you grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Before we dive more into that, let's take it back. First off, what does life look like for you today? You got that going on. What else do you have going on before we dive further into your journey?
Yeah, my day job, I work for a company called Media Farm. So I produce media. I produce a podcast. I produce media for a stem cell clinic and a cancer hospital in Mexico, CPI Stem Cells in the TAM Center, owned by a man named Ed Clay who lives here in Nashville.
Yep.
So I produce his podcast. And that's where most of my time goes. And then on the side, working on building Meriwether.
Nice, man. So is Media Farm, so is that your company or?
I don't own Media Farm, contracted to do work for him.
Okay, cool.
Owned by a gentleman, a fine man named Matt Wilson.
How'd you get into like editing and stuff?
Man, it's funny. Like, I don't know if I've ever submitted a resume in my life, so I guess I was just making videos, trying to think of how the whole media thing came about. So when I was in college, I had a car detailing business. And then at some point I went around to the bars in Boone, where I was living, Boone, North Carolina.
Oh, I grew up not far from there.
Yeah.
Pilot Mountain.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I lived in Boone for 5 years.
Sweet.
I went to all the bars and I brought a camera and I started like taking pictures of the food and running the social media accounts. And then stopped doing that for a little bit. I started a car purchasing agency. We were buying cars, just like calling people, selling cars on Craigslist. So I was like, back on the phone for a couple of years. And then I just wanted to get back into media, and I ran into Matt, and we kind of talked about some of the projects he had going on, and I had some skills that, were of value to what he was working on. We started working on some things, and then Ed needed some help with his things and picked up CPI as a client, and kind of for the past 3 or 4 years been really focused on CPI and Ed's podcast.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be a whole nother conversation too. I'd love to talk about that stuff. You've talked about it. I guess you would say today, what you're building now that excites you most would probably be Meriwether Academy.
Yeah.
Like what else with that?
Yeah. Like what other things aside from Meriwether?
Yeah, that excites you most in this season of your life that you're currently building.
Man, I mean, I've never really had a project like Meriwether that really, I think that when you find something that energizes you beyond comprehension, you're onto something.
Yeah.
And at first, maybe people see it, maybe they don't. Probably the better it is, the less they'll see it at first. So for me, like I'm like all in on this academy. But man, outside of that, I'm a big outdoorsman. So like my heart is out in the forest and out in nature. Like any chance I get to get outside and spend the night under the stars is really where I thrive and where I'm very, very happy.
I feel that, man. Yeah. I got a place I go, quite often. Every year I go out there and I'll take some mushrooms.
Yep.
and I'll camp out.
Yeah.
And I'll turn into a werewolf and stuff. It's actually happened. But yeah, dude, but there's nothing like that, man.
Yeah.
You know, you're just so connected. I think more people need to do that. You know, I'm just saying. Just spend time in nature, man. That'll reset everything too.
It will. I mean, you know, so when I was 16, just some backstory stuff. When I was 16 years old.
Well, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I'll get to this, but take us back a little bit further.
Yeah.
You know, like where do you hail from, Warren?
Yeah.
You know, take us into a little bit of your childhood, you know, what that was like, into, you know, what happened when you were 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I was born in Michigan, and my father worked for General Electric. So we moved around a lot. Lived in St. Louis, Dallas, Atlanta. I spent most of my childhood in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Pretty normal childhood. I've got great parents. They're still together. Very, very grateful for that. You know, I spent most of my time as a kid outside, running around in the forest behind the house, like catching animals and snakes and putting them in like aquariums in the garage and keeping them as pets, and really was just like big into the outdoors. And then, you know, at some point, which is actually one of the things I'm very passionate about fighting, is, dude, the Call of Duty got me, man.
Yeah.
I started playing, like, I really got hooked on video games at one point.
Same.
And when I look at those years of my life, like, I totally abandoned a lot of my time outside and really all the things that make me who I am.
Yeah.
There's like a chunk of my teenage years that are almost this blur because I was just so entrenched in wasting my time playing video games.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys have that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of adult men do, you know, I mean, some people make a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about that, but you're still not like present.
No.
I'm just saying, you know,
I was making no money.
Yeah, exactly. You were doing it for free.
Yeah.
And even then, it reminds me, I was a big Skyrim fan.
Yeah.
I still am. I love the lore.
Stories are, yeah.
It's so great to just get kind of lost in. Like, if I'm going to get lost anywhere, it's going to be like in Skyrim, right?
Yeah.
I'm a huge Tolkien fan. Like that realm of things is just so badass. And there's a lot to learn from it too, but it's not one of those games you get in there and you play like for 10 minutes, you know, you're going to be stuck for like 2 hours at least. Right.
Yeah, dude.
And it can consume you. So I know, when my wife and I met, I had like a newer PlayStation and one of the freaking handheld ones that you could plug to your TV. I forget what it's called. Nintendo or something, I think. But yeah, I don't know. My daughter's on the way. I just sold all that shit. I was like, I'm never gonna have another game system.
Yeah, dude.
You know, it's just, I don't even, any free time I do have, I'm not spending it doing that shit.
Yeah, I remember when I was 18, I had just moved up for school, and I had like this big TV. I had the Xbox, and I don't know what it was. At some point, I was like, fuck this, man. I sold the TV, sold my Xbox, haven't owned a TV since.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's great.
Man, it's funny. So when people come over to my house, you'll notice that most living rooms are oriented towards the TV.
Ours is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when people come over to my house, the furniture is oriented towards the other furniture.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because we're so used to walking into a room, into a house, and when people come over and there's not a TV, it like confuses them at first. It's actually really funny to see.
They're like, where am I at?
Yeah, they're trying to like figure out the feng shui of the room because there's not this like this common draw to the TV that like we're used to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to see them like come over and like look around, and then I usually can kind of tell they're thinking about it, and then like a few minutes later they're like, "You don't have a TV, do you?" And I was like, "No."
I think that's a solid thing. We do, but I will say, I told my wife, like, we're only ever going to have one TV.
Yeah.
And when we have guests, you know, I just put YouTube on and put like a playlist, like some chill synthwave stuff.
Yeah.
While we do have one, I'm very particular about the use of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I don't think I'm better than anybody for not having a TV. It's just like what I did. You know, also I know some guys who have like the projectors.
Yeah.
So then like when they want to watch something, they take the projector out, throw it up on the wall. And then when they don't have anything going on, they put it away, and it's like it's not there.
A little more work than just grabbing the remote, because that's so easy to do.
Yeah, I've always thought that the projector thing was. I like movies. I love watching movies. I just watch them on my laptop.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, like a good movie. I mean, it's like really, really nice form of art.
Yeah, but I think the thing is just like the stuff that drones in the background, like Sports Center or freaking just as noise, man.
Like my mom, she goes to sleep to the news.
Like fuck, oh god,
She's just it's just like, you know what,
the Fox News, yeah,
she just like has to have the news in the background just fall asleep.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like, for lack of better terms, like a boomer generation trait.
Yeah, for sure.
My parents do the same thing, and I just start talking crap. My dad's just like, whatever. He changes it to something.
Yeah.
But I always give him crap about it.
Yeah, it's funny.
What was your relationship with school at the time growing up?
Yeah, so
because I feel like you're not like really keen on like modern schooling.
Yeah, I mean, so I was, I mean, they like put me on Ritalin, you know. So when I was young, they had me on like Ritalin and Adderall and all that shit. And I guess I was just hyperactive. You know, they said like I had Asperger's and all these things, and which is probably true. But yeah, so I don't know. Like my school, like I never really like felt like I fit in, I guess. Like, and but yeah, I remember I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. I think the first big decision that I ever really made for myself was when I decided to stop taking Adderall in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And I don't really actually recall my reasoning. Maybe it was more of like a subconscious instinct, because I don't remember like thinking about it or anything. But one day I was just like, I don't want to take this anymore. Like, I don't want to be dependent on this.
Yeah. And
I stopped taking it. And it's crazy to think about how like I was pretty much like on meth for like 10 years as a child.
Yeah.
You know?
And taking Adderall and stuff, especially in development years, it does a lot.
That's why I'm so messed up. So
yeah, I didn't take that stuff younger. I am prescribed it today, but I'm also like grown and I've got a million hats to wear myself. And I'm just like, right now in this season of my life, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm against like children taking it.
Yeah.
Personally.
So I was like, you know, really, I guess rebellious in school. Gosh, I remember, I haven't thought about this story in a while, but gosh, I think it was like 3rd or 4th grade. My mom gets this phone call from my teacher, and my teacher is just crying. And she's like, I don't know what to do with him. I can't control him. And apparently, I don't remember this, but I like got up in front of my class and just mooned my class.
Nice, dude. Hell yeah. You just are like, screw this.
Yeah.
That's funny as hell. I think there's something to be said about that too, though. Like, if you think about it, though, God forbid you don't want to be trapped in 4 walls all day.
It's not natural.
It's so unnatural, man.
Like my I would hope actually that like my reaction to it was probably like the best reaction in terms of natural instinct.
Yeah.
Like a young boy has no place sitting under fluorescent lights for 6 hours a day, going outside for an hour for recess, no place whatsoever in his spirit for that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, that's why, you know, as soon as we get land and we're in a more capable place, like my daughter's going to be old enough to go to school, but we've already agreed homeschooling is where it's at.
Yeah, I love homeschool programs, classical homeschool program. It's a big movement.
Oh, it's becoming huge.
4 million plus kids homeschooled in America now.
Well, we talked about the positive changes coming, you know, and like that's one of them, you know, just kind of reintegrating what the education looks like for kids, because that's our future, right?
Yeah.
So everything we do, like how can we influence them to actually change things? All right. Outside of you meeting everybody in class, that's funny as shit.
Dude,
how old are you at the time?
Dude, I think I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade. I hadn't thought about that story in years, but now that we're talking about it, there's like all sorts of crazy shit that I did. And then, I was just rebellious. And then, you know, like when I was like 15, 16, like that rebellion was channeled into drugs and alcohol and just not going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And then my ass got sent to the woods.
Did you choose this, or your parents were like, you're going to the woods?
No, I did not choose this. So
how'd that come about?
Yeah. So this is like the origin story of Meriwether, really. So yeah, I'm 16 years old, And I wake up one Wednesday morning and there's these two big ass Samoan dudes at the end of my bed, and they're like, you're being sent to this program. You got to come with us. And they had these like zip ties in their hands. And they're like, this could be the easy way or the hard way. It was intense, dude. Yeah. So I got kidnapped pretty much.
Did you feel like did you really, I mean, you weren't worried you were being kidnapped?
No, I wasn't worried I was being kidnapped. Because I saw my parents on the way out of the house, but
Really, peace.
yeah. But yeah, dude, so they put me in the back of this car. They drove me up to Brevard, North Carolina from Charlotte. It's like 2.5 hours. And I'm asking them, I'm like, how long is this program? And they tell me 2 weeks. So we get to Brevard and they take me out of the car. We're at this like backcountry campus thing, and they bring me to this shed. They strip me down, put me in this uniform, put this backpack on my back. And then they hike me into the woods to a group of like 10 other juvenile delinquent males around my age, like 16 to 17.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I get down. There's like three counselors with each like group, So it's like 10 to 12 boys, and 3 staff. And I get down there, and I'm looking at these other guys, thinking like, these people have been here longer than 2 weeks, for sure. Like everybody's dirty and like, awkward mustaches that you grow out like when you're a teenager, And I start asking the guys, I'm like, how long have you been here for? And they're like 70 days, 80 days, all these answers that were not 2 weeks. And I lost my mind. I ended up staying at that program for 83 days.
Damn, dude.
Living out of that backpack in the woods.
Did they seem like upset that they had been there that long, or were they kind of?
Well, at that point you're just like conditioned to it. But yeah, I mean, I lost my mind for like 4 days, and then eventually accepted that's actually one of the big lessons from that is like anybody who's maybe never been arrested or had their agency taken away from them.
Yeah.
I had no choice. Like I lost my freedom. So that was my first time feeling that, of completely losing my freedom over myself.
Yeah.
And I think that taught me a lot. And I fought it for like 4 or 5 days until eventually I was like, all right, I'm just going to have to accept this and go through this program to get out.
Yeah.
And eventually started rolling with it.
I assume you've talked to your parents about it. Yeah. As an adult. Like, what was their reasoning for doing this? Because I'd say today, I mean, I think it's badass. I think it's really healthy, and you probably, will dive into it more. But it's in society, that's a pretty extreme measure.
Yeah.
So what was their thought process, and like, hey, we're sending him off to this?
Well, I mean, it was like that, or maybe end up just like a complete degenerate or dead. It was that, or maybe a military academy. I mean, it was just like the staying at home was like not an option anymore.
Yeah.
So they had to do something. And I'm glad that I went there instead of some like institution where I'd just be under like fluorescent lights and like a sterile setting. I'd rather be out in the woods.
Yeah. Was there a point, you said you had a really hard time for 4 days. Was there a moment that everything just within you just shifted?
Man, I don't know, but it's funny. So there's so many funny stories from us being out in the woods. Like, so as soon as I start hearing these kids tell me that they've been there for 3 months, I'm like, holy shit, like this is not good. And I like lost my mind, and I was determined I'm either going to run away or like beat my head in with a rock.
Yeah.
And I think I told some kid, I was like, I'm going to get out of here tonight. And one of the staff members caught wind of my plan. So when you're like a high risk patient, they put you in this thing, at least at the time, they would put you in this thing called a burrito at night. And what that means is that, we'd sleep in tents, but they would have me on the ground and would lay this tarp over me. And one of the staff members would sleep on one side of the tarp, pinning it down. And then the other staff member would sleep on the other side of the tarp.
You're not going nowhere.
Yeah, you're not going nowhere. And if you got to wake up, take a leak, like you got to wake somebody up to get out of that thing. So I was in the burrito for maybe like 4 or 5 days, and then I simmered down, and I don't know, eventually I was like, all right, I just got to like go through this,
You accepted your fate.
I accepted my fate, and I was like, shit, all right.
what do you think was the most memorable and powerful experience of that whole thing?
Man, I mean, you just learn a lot from being out in the forest for so long. We never knew what time it was the whole time. Never knew what time it was. We went to sleep. When the sun went down, we woke up when the sun came up. We cooked all of our meals over a fire that we made with sticks and rocks. We bow drilled all the fires, no lighters.
Had to get your own food and...
We weren't harvesting food like that. We would get a supply drop once a week.
Okay.
So I just think that it was a really unique, just the whole experience of being able to be out in the forest for so long as a young man was really, really precious. Even though at the time I was like under constant surveillance and like it was not a very free setting, reflecting on that is very cool. Saw some really beautiful things, had some pretty like chaotic, evacuations off of mountains. One night we're up on Rough But Bald, and at 2 a.m. lightning strikes the top of the mountain and they wake us all up and it's pouring rain and we don't have flashlights. The staff members have flashlights, but we don't carry flashlights because like anything that we could use to run away, they take away from you.
Yeah. Don't you be able to see?
Exactly. So they're like, everybody pack up camp. Like we have to evacuate immediately. And, just me and 12 other like stupid boys were like in this rainstorm on the top of this mountain at 3 a.m. packing up our tents and evacuating down the mountain. I mean, it was like this story after story of ridiculous things like that. And it was good. They taught us a lot. We learned about the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And there was some like intellectual, like self-development things that we learned. And it was really good.
That's awesome. Man, I mean, you tell me about it. It sounds pretty cool.
The whole, if you look this up, like wilderness therapy is like the industry.
Wilderness therapy?
Yeah. And it's funny. So gosh, what was it? Maybe like 5 years ago, this documentary came out on Netflix about a program that Paris Hilton went to, which was like an extreme program where they like marched this is like in the early days of this, where there's like no regulations, and like the pioneers of these industries are like making these kids do wild shit. Like in this documentary, I think they were in Utah, and they just like marched these kids across the desert in like horrific conditions. And then at one point the founder like puts all the kids on a boat and starts like sailing them around America, Samoa, without like telling their parents where they are. And they're like just sailing around these islands. And there's all these crazy stories about these. Like, it's an interesting documentary. But then most of the like things that you see online are people complaining about their experience here. Now some of the programs are messed up. Like, 2 kids died at ours. The last death caused the closure of the program.
While you were there?
No.
Oh, okay.
So one of the kids died a few months after I left. He ran away, climbed a tree, fell into a riverbed, and got hypothermia. The other one was a lot more suspicious, where this 12-year-old boy suffocated in his sleeping bag.
Oh.
Yeah, and that ended up closing the program.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, that one was very suspicious.
Well, good thing nothing happened while you were there.
Yeah,
that would have been pretty traumatic.
Yeah, there was a kid who ran away while I was there.
Oh, really?
Dylan Massatelli.
Did he make it?
Shout out, dude. He ran away in the middle of the night. We wake up. So actually that night we were staying on campus, and the name of this program's Trails, by the way, Trails Wilderness. So we're staying in this cabin, and we wake up, and Dylan's sleeping bag is empty, in the bathroom window is open, and you can see fingerprints on the dusty window where he slid out the window. And somebody's boots were missing. He took like a pair of boots that were way too big for him. And yeah, in the middle of the night, he got on the road and he walked like 7 or 8 miles, maybe more, up to town. I guess it was downtown Brevard, and hung out in town for the day, called his dad on a payphone. And then his dad was like, you got to go back. You got to just turn yourself in. And cop picked him up, brought him back. legend forever.
The guy that made it almost.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he got out and he like had an afternoon like of freedom.
Went and got himself a beer.
I think he went to like a gas station and got like a bag of potato chips, and
it's like, oh, this is life.
It was funny, man.
That's funny as hell. What you were telling me about in Utah reminds me of the movie Holes. They're just like digging holes, like putting kids through hard manual labor. Like, it's not too. It's pretty realistic though.
Yeah, there were some programs like early on, like the ones in that documentary that were like definitely would not fly now.
Yeah.
But the moral is like there's a lot to learn from being outside.
Yeah.
And with Meriwether, we do a lot of outdoor experiences. We do a lot of camping trips, canoe trips. All of our programs, the retreats, there's always something that's grounded in nature.
Yeah.
And then with the school, our 5-year plan is to build a boys' school, a boarding school. It's not a reformative program like the one that I went to. So I went to the woods for those 3 months, and then 9 months after those 3, I went to a boarding school in Hendersonville.
What do you think? Like, why were you able to leave? Like, you got to the end of that time. Were they like, all right, he's good to go?
Yeah.
Is that pretty much?
It's generally like a 90-day window where like you'll get through the program and you're like completing these assignments and all these things, these like writing assignments and learning things. So,
okay.
Some kids who are like more of an issue will stay longer. But they definitely try to get your parents to keep you there for at least 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems that your biggest takeaway was probably just that connection to nature and what that can do for you.
Man, 1,000%. I mean, it's just like, it's real.
Yeah.
That is reality. Like, this is not reality.
Yeah.
That is reality.
Nature is God.
And all of this that we experience in civilization is built upon the natural laws that govern nature.
Yeah.
And then the higher up you build from those natural laws, the more strange deviations you get. So when you go out into the woods, you really are dealing face to face with reality at its most primitive level.
That's so cool. Maybe eventually when I get some land, I'll host some episodes like at a setting in the woods. I'll just have like a badass little setup.
That'd be awesome, dude.
That's actually possible. And nobody take that idea. I'm actually going to do this.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, so coming out of that, obviously life is different, right? Mm-hmm. You've just had an experience that no one at school with you has had.
Yeah.
So what was the shift? And you went to boarding school. What was that experience like?
Yeah. So after those 3 months in that pretty intensive program, I went to the Trails Academy, which was the boarding school up on this mountain. I think it was an old Girl Scouts camp that they bought and turned into this school. It was like 20 boys. And, our classrooms were these cabins. We had this like mess hall with this big old cast iron stove, and we had trails going into Pisgah National Forest. We mountain biked. We had a lake, canoes, all that. And, man, I just remember, looking back on my formative years, pretty much all the other time outside of those 12 months, the 3 in the woods and the 9 at the school, are kind of all blur together in terms of what I learned from my schooling. Really, everything that I am is in some way derived from my education or the experience of my education, the setting at that school.
Yeah.
And that, has obviously developed into my desire to build a school from what I've learned. But yeah, I mean, I just think that if you really want a boy to learn and to be happy and to really, cultivate his spirit.
Yeah.
It's not in a school that is built like a prison where you teach obedience and submission.
Yeah. It's, so I'd say there's quite a different, it differed quite a bit from traditional education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't necessarily have like a classical curriculum, which I'm a big fan of now. But just the fact that we were in the woods, we were walking to class to these cabins, we were hiking in our free time. Like once a month we'd go on an expo where we'd all get in a Sprinter van and drive to like Charleston and canoe out and camp on an island for 5 nights, or drive to Knoxville and camp out and do rock climbing and things like that.
Sweet.
Yeah, those were cool, man. Those are really, really cool.
Would you say it's a much more enjoyable experience than, just being in the woods for 3 months or for 3 months?
Well, it definitely had more freedom.
Yeah,
for sure. Definitely had more freedom. It's funny what you do when you're in the woods like that for a long time. Like, for example, we would all in the program, the intense program, we all had these notebooks, and we would just make lists of food that we wanted to eat when we got out. Pages and pages and pages, like any food item that we could think of, we would write it down.
Yeah.
And talk about the food that we were going to eat when we got out. This is like some like primal stuff, because I remember reading a great book called Endurance about Ernest Shackleton.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's an awesome book.
Yep.
Yeah, I read that probably about 6 years ago.
In that book, he talks about how him and his crew, like, they would just talk about what they wanted to eat when they got home.
That's so interesting.
I was like, shit, we did the exact same thing.
It's I think it makes you grateful for just tiny little things. I saw a video of these kids. It's like, if you could have anything, what would it be? And it had all these kids. They're like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And like, I'd like that too. I would use it in a way that's probably not wasteful nowadays. As a kid, it would have been like that one movie, where he got the blank check. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know, was it Macaulay Culkin?
Yeah, it was called Blank Check.
Yeah.
He bought like a mansion and had all kinds of crazy stuff going on. That's what it would have been like.
Yeah.
But I saw there was kids from other countries, and there was just some type of food or just very simple things, or I just want to go back home.
Yep.
The perspective changes so much based off of just the setting you're in, because here y'all are still in the States, and you're just like, dude, whatever I could have, I just want some good food.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted I wanted Waffle House,
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite food. This is my favorite place.
It's good, man.
We'll have to get Waffle House soon. I got the mug. I'm getting a hat. I love Waffle House, man.
Dude, I've been meaning to ask them for one of those coffee mugs. I don't know if they sell them or not.
They do for $7.
Yeah, that's worth it.
And they're good coffee mugs.
And they're good. They're heavy. They got a good feel in your hand.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I just went there. I bought one last time we were there, or a while ago, and then they got the Christmas edition one. So every Christmas they have a new one.
Nice.
So and my family, my wife and daughter, like, we go there every Christmas.
Yeah.
That's like our Christmas night dinner or something.
I love the like Waffle House indicator for like bad weather, where it's like they say like if the Waffle House is closed, you're screwed.
That's kind of how I base everything.
Yeah.
Is Waffle House still running? No, everything's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they get after it.
Yeah, they get after it.
That's so funny, man. And but you were at this school, you had a lot more freedom, so that's a plus. But you learned a lot prior to that. You probably wouldn't have been ready to go to this school too. So, and maybe in a way it prepped you for that.
Yeah.
But after this, you're obviously, you're probably getting closer around 17 at this point. So briefly just kind of cover, what brought you to now?
Yeah. So, I go back to public school for my last year of high school. And then I went to App State in Boone.
I knew a lot of people that went to App State. How old are you?
28.
You're 28
Mm-hmm.
now? Shoot, dude. I mean, you don't know anybody I went to then.
Yeah. I went to App State, and it's kind of funny because I kind of just got caught back up in like the culture of playing video games. Actually, I go through this whole thing in the woods, and then I get home and I just get sucked right back into it.
It's crazy how easy that is.
Yeah. And then shortly after, like a couple years in, sold the TV, sold the Xbox. Then, had the detailing business. I did not finish school at App State. Instead of finishing my business studies, I just wanted to run the business and learn that way. So I ran the detailing business, started the media business, did the cars. And then I think I was 22 when I came to Nashville. So I've been here for 6 years. And yeah, man, I like Tennessee a lot.
Yeah, when did you move here?
It would have been I was here like 6 months before COVID.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
2019.
Yeah, 2019, like 2018, 2019, something like maybe like a year, 6 months before COVID, something like that.
Okay. And you just loved it ever since?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm not really a big like city guy, but like there's so much that's a 30-minute drive.
Accessible.
Yeah, I mean, you can really drive for 20 minutes outside of Nashville, and you can get to some country.
Oh, yeah.
And that's nice.
It is nice, man. I mean, living in Murfreesboro, like I don't really like being in the city, but I can get to Tullahoma or Manchester. There's, I got different waterfalls or,
Yeah.
Savage Gulf is an hour away.
Yeah.
There's so many beautiful places that you can quickly get to and pretty directly get to as well. You don't have to be in the city.
Absolutely. Yeah. Savage Gulf's one of my favorite places to go. I love hiking down there.
Okay. That's where I go actually.
Yeah.
When I do my little trips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you do the Fiery Gizzard or what do you do?
There's there's one site, there's a trailhead that kind of goes about a half mile through the woods, and then there's some campsites, and there's like a view over there.
The Stone Door, maybe.
Not Stone Door. God, it's on the tip of my tongue because I took the girls there a couple of weeks ago. But then from the campsites, you got this big view. There's a cliffside, and then you could hike down under this waterfall.
Mm.
You know what I'm talking about? It's kind of carved out, and you can go. You're almost under all this rock.
Is it like a massive? I think How long does it take to get to that waterfall? Is it a couple miles in, or is it pretty close?
It's a couple miles in because it's a half a mile to the campsite.
Before you get to that campsite, is there like a massive waterfall, like a giant waterfall?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like straight to the camp because that's where I go. I'll rent out all the spots.
Yeah.
It's like $70 for.
That's smart.
Yeah. Especially if I'm on my, in a different state of mind.
It's a good way to do it. Rent out all the campsites.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'll do. I'll be by myself. I paid $70. This is all mine, guys.
Yeah, that's perfect, dude.
Yeah. We'll have to go do that sometime soon.
Yeah, Savage Gulf is great. Like Fiery Gizzard is one of my favorite trails to go hike overnight and just day hike. I mean, it's a dog fight, dude. That is a hard trail.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to manage a little bit. We had a toddler with us, and she does not want to be held.
Yeah.
She wants to hike, and I'm like, okay, I got to carry you through some of this.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate her willingness to try.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's such a beautiful area. Again, we are close to a lot of stuff, and then even then we got the mountains just a few hours away if you want to get out that way.
Yep. Yeah. I like hitting the Smokies. It's so easy. 3.5 hours, you can get to Townsend. I can leave on like a Friday evening, camp out in the car Friday night, wake up, go into the Smokies, camp out Saturday, and be back in Nashville Sunday.
Yeah, I love it, man. So when you moved here, you were doing your detailing?
No, I was buying cars.
Okay, because I know detailing, there's a lot of money in it. I mean, it can be fruitful, especially if you can get into like coatings and stuff, like PPL now, or I think it's PPL, PPF or something.
Yeah.
PPF. I mean, dude.
I had a good time doing it, man. It's funny. Like I had this 79 El Camino at the time.
Nice.
This red, or 72 El Camino, this red 72 El Camino. It had black racing stripes. That thing was a death trap. But I had it in college, and I would just pull up, and I had all my stuff in the back of this El Camino, and bust cars out in between classes, and it was fun.
Hell yeah,
it was
man.
a good time, dude. Yeah.
Why'd you get rid of that thing?
Man, I don't know. I just sold it. Just bought the Honda, I guess, just to like zip around more. I wanted to like be able to go further.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a classic car. Be taking on road trips all the time.
Yeah, you can't be like, like with the car, like the Honda, like I can drive like anywhere, really.
Yeah, it's got another like 1,000,000 miles on it still, I'm sure.
Yeah, anywhere I want to go, like I can just get in and drive there and think nothing of it.
Yeah,
which is great.
Just know you're good to go.
Yeah.
So you get here, things shift quite a bit.
Yep.
You eventually get rid of the car. What was the biggest shift for you in this time, being in Nashville, that really set in stone your goals and aspirations with Meriwether and whatnot?
Yeah. Well, I think the idea for the school had been brewing for a while. And also for years, I had been hosting dinner parties like that, just under really no name, just like getting guys together.
Yeah.
And I had also been really trying to figure out how I could get people outside. So I was taking friends on hiking trips, some of which were like a bit more aggressive than that. Like I took a bunch of guys on Fiery Gizzard once.
Yeah.
And half of them mutinied against me the second day, and we're like, fuck this, like we're not walking back. It's hilarious. It's a funny story. But yeah, like we start at the north trailhead, and I hike them down to the south trailhead 12 miles, and they're like beat up. And and then there's a trailhead at the south trailhead, but I wanted everybody, I was like, let's go back up, hit the 24-mile weekend. And half of them were like, fuck that, dude, we're out. And they went down and like called an Uber to the South Trailhead. And then me and the other half ended up completing the whole thing.
Just going for it.
You just going for it, dude. So yeah, like I like getting my friends outside and I like it myself. And I was like, is there a way for me to like turn this into a business?
Yeah.
That would be fun. Right. And then the idea of combining the dinners, I was like, what type of an umbrella brand could hold these dinners that I'm doing, this outdoor stuff, and also this really at the time was just like a seed of an idea for a boys' school.
Yeah.
And, Meriwether Academy came out of that. And it started with the idea for the boys' school, and then I kind of reverse engineered it to the events that we do now as a way to just start the thing, because school is a pretty big project. So it'll take a little bit of time. I really wanted to get some action going.
Yeah.
So we started hosting the men's retreats and the camping trips, and last weekend we slaughtered a pig.
Yeah.
And learned how to butcher and process an entire pig in a weekend.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that was fun.
There's so much value in that.
Yeah, that was a really cool event. My favorite part was that one of the guys brought his 12-year-old son.
Cool.
And, he was just like, elbows deep in the work.
Yeah.
Cutting up the pig, butchering it, processing the meat, making the sausage. It was really, really inspiring to see that young man, James, really lean into that. And I hope that it changed his life.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
It's definitely impactful because not every kid's doing stuff like that.
And he got to do it with his dad.
Yeah.
Which was really cool.
Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to hunt. I love the deer hunt, and eventually I want to take my daughter with me. But I want to teach her how to dress it, all that stuff, man. Just prep it.
Yep.
And because it's an intimate experience as well. You know what I'm saying? And I think it just has a lasting impact. I didn't start doing that till my adult years. I just wanted to get into it, and I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things. And you got a deep freezer full of food that you provided.
Yeah. And it's like clean food.
Yeah.
Not from the grocery store.
Yep. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about Midsummer and stuff, but
I'd like to come. Is it like a family thing, or it's just you guys, or what?
when we get together for Moot, it depends on like which one we're getting together for. Midsummer is very family oriented. So my wife will cook all kinds of stuff and sourdough and whatever. I have friends that'll fly in town. Like we got our crew, the Hurry, but then we got our friends that are like family. And yeah, they'll bring their kids and their wife. And then we just have a bunch of dudes come, kind of vet them. And yeah, dude, it's just a great gathering. We'll have, we'll wear the flower crowns, we had the maypole. During that, to build up energy for ritual, we'll have like some boxing and some grappling going on.
Perfect.
So everybody gets an opportunity to do that. And that really just helps build for ritual. And, we do ritual down in the woods at the Vay. And then we burn like a solar cross, in the middle of a field. Yeah. And it's just blazing, man. It's just always a powerful time. And I'll do like rune readings for everybody every year. Yeah. So I'll just like sit down. I'll sit in the middle of the field for hours, dude, on mushrooms, and just like people just come to me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I really love it. Yeah, dude, we just have such a powerful time, man. We'll hit up a trail, or some guys may go trail running or whatever. But I think you would enjoy it.
I'd love to come see it. Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, I feel like you'll be down with all the conversations. So you had said a few years ago, you realized education missed the greatest thinkers. So I'm curious, what triggered that realization?
Yeah, man. So, I was not raised with a classical education. I think I read like Beowulf in high school and maybe,
such a good one.
Maybe the Odyssey, but it really wasn't until I was a young man of like 22 or maybe 23 where I started to realize that there were all these beautiful ideas that had built civilization that I was never introduced to.
Yeah.
We were never taught to study like Greek and Roman thinkers, or really even taught to dive into the thoughts of our founding fathers at my school, which is a shame. Yeah. So I started to kind of study the Western canon a little bit. And then when I was getting ready to work on the school project, I wanted to figure out what type of curriculum I wanted to teach the boys. And I came across the philosophy of the classical education, which is essentially, there's a lot of different ways people approach it, but it's essentially, you know, a reading and writing heavy curriculum based off of the greatest books that the Western world has ever produced.
Oh yeah, man.
Very simple.
Yeah.
You know, so you read the great thinkers, and then you write about it, and you talk about it, and you have small classes, and you debate it. And so I started to really dive into the founders and learn about them. I also have a particular, you know, passion for the Lewis and Clark story, and I started to read about those guys.
Yeah.
The Academy is named after Meriwether Lewis, who was the captain of that expedition.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that story is like if what the Odyssey is to the Greeks, the core of discovery is to the American.
Yeah.
That story is the American Odyssey.
Wait, if you could briefly sum that up for, you know, those listening?
Yeah, you know, 1804, Thomas Jefferson, and this is skipping some details, just make it brief, but in 1804, Thomas Jefferson sends Meriwether Lewis on a mission to find an all-water route to the Pacific, which did not exist, it turned out, but Lewis gets William Clark. They bring 35 guys out into the wilderness for 2.5 years, and they return, and they don't lose a single guy to an accident at all during those 2.5 years. I think it's one of the most incredible examples of leadership ever. One guy died of appendicitis like a few months in. But yeah, 2.5 years out, you know, trading with natives, fighting bear, going over mountains, dominating rivers, and to do all that for 2.5 years and not lose a single man.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, they survey the Louisiana Territory, which Jefferson purchased from Napoleon. It's considered the greatest real estate deal ever in human history. 828,000 square miles at 3 cents an acre, or I believe it was 3 cents an acre. It might have been 3 cents a square mile, 3 cents an acre, $50 million. And then, yeah, he sends Lewis and Clark out there. They survey it. They come back. And that gives, you know, America a stronger claim to the territory. And it's just an amazing story.
That is amazing. And it makes sense as to why you named your academy that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really cool connection. It's not just random.
Yeah.
I mean, you got me thinking, I can't even get somebody to sell me land for $1 an acre. You know, they took 3 back then. Why can't I? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, land is expensive as shit nowadays.
Absolutely.
But it's just crazy to, I guess, just the process that you could do that back then as well. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, there's a good book about that for people who want to learn called Undaunted Courage by Stephen Ambrose. It's a really great read. It's written like a novel. It's easy to read, and it really gives you the whole story. And I mean, what's so beautiful about the story, you know, Lewis was a very like romantically spirited man, and he died a very tragic death close to Nashville.
Really?
He died about 70 miles from Nashville in the Natchez Trace, and it's hotly contested whether it was murder or suicide. So, and Clark, on the other hand, was a very, like, Lewis was this very, like, bipolar, like, manic, depressive type of character.
Yeah.
Clark was very level-headed. Clark ended up living a long life, you know, had a family, all that. Lewis gets back and runs into all these issues and dies at 35 years old. Yep.
I never knew that.
So it's the story has everything. It has the romantic exploration. It has the political importance, and then, you know, it has the tragedy at the end.
What thinkers they talk about reshape your worldview?
Yeah, man. I mean, I enjoy reading Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. You really cannot go wrong with any of those founders.
Yeah. And
then when you start to get into them, you know, you really quickly realize that, like, we are in a fallen state. Like, the people that we are today and what our minds are capable of is vastly degenerated from the founding stock.
100%.
And it's I mean, it's these guys are geniuses, like perhaps some of the smartest men to ever walk the earth. And just to think about how now our culture has demonized, like every time a statue comes down, my blood boils.
Yeah, I agree.
It's horrible.
Do you think we've been given like literature and everything's changed so much and we don't really lean into those individuals, broadly? Do you think we've been robbed of something?
Yeah, it is a robbery.
Yeah.
I think that if you can get a people to forget their heritage, you can do whatever you want to them.
Oh, 100%.
It's one of the primary tenets in Orwell's 1984 is if the government can rewrite history or make you forget about the past, they can do whatever they want to you.
Mm.
So when we demonize these founders, the people who created our nation and the principles that they instilled, it's a complete washing of what made us great. Like all of the things that we enjoy now are not because of what people are doing now. It's because of what people did 200, 100, 150 years ago.
Yeah.
Like our freedoms exist in the wake of what these people thought and wrote and did. In the things that we're doing now, we will not feel the consequences of those actions until 50 years from now.
Yeah.
And it will be very different.
Mm.
So people think about like how great it is to be in America now. That's not because of what anybody's done in the past like 80 years or 100 years. It's because of what happened 150, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a delay.
What I find frustrating is the demonization of these individuals comes from a place that has no backing. It's based off of feelings and thoughts much rather than fact.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and it's based off of a modern morality that, like anytime I bring up Thomas Jefferson, the only thing people have to say is that he owned slaves. It's like, I'm so sick of it.
Yeah.
Like any of these founders, like these people, these leftists, like all they will do is demonize everything that these people wrote and thought because they own slaves. And it's interesting with Jefferson because Jefferson owned a lot of slaves. He had like 600, 700 slaves.
Yeah.
And the big thing with him is they say he had kids with one of his slaves. I don't believe that was true. It was a smear campaign. There's a lot to read about that, actually. Yeah. But what's also interesting, you have such a paradoxical figure. Jefferson wrote the Northwest Ordinances, which brought, I think it was 7 new states into the Union. And he wrote that so that there would be no slavery there.
Mm.
So you have this man who owns these slaves, and then when he is writing the legislature for bringing in these new states, he writes that there will be no slavery there.
Yeah.
Jefferson also condemned slavery in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
And it was removed by committee.
Mm. Isn't that crazy?
Such a paradox.
I find interesting too is like in our modern culture, we're able to, a lot of people are able to watch this movie with this person in or listen to this person's music and they gain so much from that. And it's like, well, what about these evil things that they've done? You can uncover all this stuff and yet they still gain value from just their music or their acting, right? So you look back in history and I'm not making comparisons like slavery and whatever else somebody's done. What I'm getting at is like, you're able to tune out certain things from these people, but when it goes back to people that brought a lot of value to our world, it's just like, one thing about it and you're like, nope, that's all they ever were.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like,
it's so simple.
If you're able to like look at the art or something these people create and turn a blind eye to these individuals because of one thing. And I'm not saying it's right, like I'm not one to support slavery. Never would, but at the same time, like you look outside of that scope.
Yeah, and these people, like we ended slavery.
Yeah.
And that has not happened on Earth. Like there are still slaves on Earth in many other places.
Mm-hmm.
People condemn Western civilization which they summarize as being white people. They say like, white people owned these slaves, but the Western world also ended slavery. So, maybe we could get some credit for that, like ending this whole thing.
Mm.
It's also interesting during the North Atlantic slave trade, there were more Europeans enslaved than Africans at the time.
Really?
Yeah, the Marine. Are you a Marine?
No,
I
Air
saw
Force.
the Marine Corps sign up there.
Adams Marine. Yeah,
Yeah.
Air Force here.
The Marine Corps was created by Thomas Jefferson, and he sent them over to it was the Horn of Africa, or not the Horn of Africa, Northern Africa. I guess maybe it was the Mediterranean, to fight the Barbary pirates, who were Muslims who were enslaving Europeans.
I know all about that.
It was the origin of the United States Marine Corps.
I didn't know that, though.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yes, extremely interesting. You know, God, I hate that we're pressed on time because I know you got things to do, but you're going to be back. I'm not stressing that.
I would love to.
But in the time that you have, there's a couple things I do want to cover.
Yeah.
Before we do run out of any time. One of the biggest things is the crisis of young men.
Yeah.
You know, you believe that our culture will fall if we don't create a success path for boys. You know, and I agree. You know, the children are the future, right? So I may just ever have my daughter, which I'm completely fine with. So how do I set her up for success? Because I think boys and women alike, right? You know, we need to mold them for the future to make it better and not be what we hope it's not 50 years down the road or plus, right? But that said, you know, that's where you're charged in at, is where you're dialed in. So explain that a little bit.
All of the fate of any civilization rests upon the actions of its men.
Yeah.
And its young men, and how you raise those young men. It was Diogenes, the crazy Greek philosopher who lived in a barrel, who said that the foundation of the state is the education of its youth. So it goes back to that delay, like the way that we're educating our kids now, we'll feel that in 20 years.
Yeah.
And what we're feeling now is the way we educated our kids 20 years ago. You know, when I was reading about the founders and the things that they would read, and you go read a letter that like 12-year-old John Adams wrote, just like a letter to his dad. And you're like, dude, I couldn't even write like this. Like, I don't know anybody who could write like this.
Yeah.
You're talking about an extreme level of competency at a very young age for a lot of people, even normal people. Like, just find any letters that people wrote back and forth from as far back as you can find them. Yeah. And they're eloquent and beautiful and poetic and romantic, and the handwriting is beautiful. It's like, man, something's off. So, you know, at Meriwether, our approach to our philosophy for educating a young man is 3 pillars. You have a classical education, which educates them culturally, historically, and intellectually. Then you have a wilderness education, where you teach them resourcefulness and how to endure discomfort. And also being outside teaches you how to appreciate beauty, which is very important.
Yeah.
To be able to recognize the beautiful from the ugly.
Yeah. And
then the 3rd pillar is martial arts. Teaching a boy how to defend himself and how to protect the people that he loves is very important. Combat, you really can't learn the things that you learn fighting. You cannot learn anywhere else.
No.
And it's intense, and like first time getting in a fight, and it's you know, nerve wracking, but you just learn so much. You learn so much respect. You learn yourself. You learn what you're capable of, what you're not capable of. It humbles you and gives you confidence at the same time. It really levels you out. And then you just, you know, you earn so much respect for yourself and for others through that experience.
Yeah.
And you carry yourself differently. So I think that every young man, you know, should know how to box at least a fundamental level.
Yeah, I think those pillars that you stated are powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfect. And it's cool too, because I was listening to what you were saying earlier about, you know, what you're doing with what you're currently got going on with Meriwether, and I don't think you really expected it to be, you know, grown men, because the school's where your passion's at, right? But I think that is a good place to be, because, you know, a lot of these men have children. Yeah. Their friends have sons, right? And it's like, so you're building a relationship with, you know, possibly the parents or something similar, right? People that they look up to that will send their kids here possibly.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, I've got an event coming up next month. I've never been so excited for it. We're doing a father-son camping trip. So we're going to go out to Montgomery Bell. I'm going to go out there with 3 father-son duos. We're going to hike in I'm going to teach them some knots, how to build some shelters, how to clean water, start a fire, cook over a fire, basic like wilderness 101 type things. But just to be able to be the steward of an experience like that for a man and his son is really an honor. And out of all the events that I've done ever in my life, I'm most excited for this one, even though it's just 6 people.
Are you taking on more?
That one, there is no more space, but
Okay.
I've had more people inquire than I had space for. So I'm going to put maybe one, well, definitely one, or maybe 2 on the calendar for May.
Sweet, man. I've got some people I'll send your way.
Yeah.
And I think would love that.
I mean, if I can, I would happily spend my weekends camping and hiking around the woods with fathers and their sons every single weekend if I have enough interest. I mean, that's awesome to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's really awesome.
I would give up so many things to be able to provide that to people.
That's powerful, man. And I think, as you keep pursuing this, man, who knows what it'll all turn into.
Yeah.
But I whatever I can do to support that, because I think it's powerful. Because I was going to ask, what do you think happens when boys grow up without challenge, without responsibility, without initiation?
Yeah, I mean, you're spineless, and then you're pretty much, you have no backbone, you stand for nothing, and you will fall for anything. Like everything is gone.
Mm.
Your culture loses everything if the men are not willing to fight for it.
Yeah. Why are rites of passage important for boys?
Yeah, male rites of initiation. So, women have a rite of passage built into their body.
Mm.
When they begin to menstruate, and there's a ceremony behind that, and it's an introduction into womanhood.
Yeah,
but men don't have that. We're not built with something like that, so our rites of passage have to come externally.
Mm.
It's when you read about rites of passages in various civilizations, they're very interesting. Like you have the tribal cultures, and then you have like the more like civilized, you could say, like Western cultures, and there's a formula to it. You take the boy and you rip him away from what he knows. You kidnap him, really, which happened to me.
Yeah.
You rip him away from what he knows, and you place him in what is referred to as a liminal space. It's neither here nor there. It could be like a chamber of reflection, or maybe like it's a hut, in the dark. And then he has to take on some challenge and either defeat something, generally fight something. Oftentimes the rite of passage leaves a scar on his body in many of these cultures. And then after he goes through that trial, proving his courage, proving his masculinity, his manhood, he is then reintroduced into his society, what he knew, as a changed person.
Yes.
So it could be, well, I think for most guys, it's the first fight.
Yeah.
Your first fight is a rite of passage. There's also some pretty damn hard hikes that can be a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Fire Gizzard is a bit of a rite of passage for people. So anything where you're being stripped away from what you know and you have to overcome something, you return a changed person, a changed man.
Yeah.
And we don't have that in our culture for boys anymore.
No, when I think back of high school, like dudes are like, "Oh, you lost your virginity, you're a man now." Like, God,
Yeah.
if that's what it takes to be a man,
Yeah.
that's terrible.
Yeah.
No wonder we are where we are.
Another one for like what you do with your daughter, you will do is like hunting, like a boy's first deer with his dad.
Yeah.
That's a rite of passage, taking a life and honoring it, turning it into food, absolute rite of passage. Yeah. So all of these things, will be built into Meriwether. We will hunt the land. The boxing will initiate these boys into maturity. The hunting will initiate them into maturity. We plan on having some agricultural projects. So, you'll learn a lot by giving a boy a garden and saying, keep this shit alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like responsibility.
Yeah. 100%.
That's what we don't do. We don't give our kids responsibility at a young age, and then they are not able to handle it when they're older.
No, not at all.
So the more responsibility you can give a young person, the quicker they'll mature and become more competent and more self-confident.
Man, I love that. I love that, man. And I want to dive a lot. I want to dive deep into this. So we'll have to get you in the books again to do so.
Yeah.
I think that's a good stopping point. We got a few minutes left, and I'm just so stoked about what you got going on, man. I think it's an amazing thing, and I hope to see, however I can support it in its growth, I will do. And I hope to see a lot of positive growth for it, man. I think you're onto something powerful.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
It's an honor to be here, man. Honor to have you as a part of it.
Hell yeah, man. I do got one final question. Mm-hmm. Warren, what is your relentless pursuit?
The Academy.
The Academy.
Yeah, I mean, like every ounce of my energy is going into, it might be the first time where I actually felt myself giving a piece of my soul to something.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting feeling.
Damn. I love that, man. Well, thank you. And if you could say something to your 16-year-old self in the woods right now, I usually ask for Relentless Pursuit last, but I thought about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, your 16-year-old self that's in the woods, if you could say something to him now, what would you tell him?
I just say lean in.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time today, bro.
Thanks, Joe.
Hey, I'm going to shake your hand real quick. Thanks, man. Yes, sir. All right, guys. Till next time. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned in this show, and honestly in life, is that healing doesn't live in just one lane. Some people find it through addiction recovery, some through therapy, some through faith, some through hard conversations that they've avoided for years, and some for finally being honest about what they're carrying. I started this show to give people a voice, to share real journeys, real struggles, and real growth. And what it's shown me is how many people are walking through similar battles, even if it looks different on the surface. Through this platform, I've been connected with people across so many lanes: addiction recovery, mental health, veterans and first responders, faith, marriage and relationships, trauma, and everything in between. I want to say this clearly. If you're listening right now and you're struggling, please reach out. You don't need to know exactly what you need. You don't need the right words. You don't have to even know exactly where to start, but through my network, I'll do everything I can to get you connected with the right person in the right lane for where you are. That's what this show is about. Real stories, real connection, and reminding people that there is a way forward.